Hey, for today's power moment, um, what I'm really excited about, I love this one, is what we're going to go into is kind of your roadmap for growth and accountability. So, a lot of you, know that I got shamed during Bold for not teaching you guys enough tools. It was like, she called me to the table and she's like, does anyone know these tools? And not enough of you rose your hand. So, I felt that one. So what we're doing today is going through those. I want to make sure you know them. I want to make sure you have them. We're going to give you some AI to also use it and help coach you through it. So we're going to go through a lot of that to give you that so you can kind of continue to use this in your business. And the reason why is, we've talked now about where you're at and your goal and building that bridge and helping you get over there, right? The tools that really help you get there, three of them. There's a lot of other ones, of course, in doing the actions. But the three tools that we're gonna go through two of them today are GPS, 411, and your growth plan. Ultimately, in order for you not only to know where you're going and have the goal, have it so you know, hey, how many transactions do I have to do? Hey, what am I doing here, right? Any area of life, what your goal is. These are tools that you can use to help you get there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of these because the reality is, and I love this quote, your business grows to the extent you do. So when you can focus on, hey, what do I need to do? Where am I at? Where do I need to grow? Right? What tools do I need to implement to make it so I can get there? Is what's going to help you get a lot farther and faster than you could have. Right? I always joke because I was talking with somebody a little bit ago. They were looking at my schedule and they were like, man, you just must love your calendar. And this must be like your personality and this and that. And I pulled up my KPA and it was like, no, like my KPA, my personality assessment does not show that I'm an organized human being. I know but it's shocking, right? So they kind of were the same thing. They're like, really? But it's because over the last 11 years, I've been implementing this, improving it, working on it, and this has been my tool to help me get towards my goals personally, even though it's not really what my personality aspect fits. So like there's many years and a lot of times where I'm like, no, like I have a hard time wanting to do that, right? But it's one of those tools to help you do that to make it and get where you want. So here's kind of why this matters. First off, shockingly, most agents drift without clear direction. I know this is a surprise to every single entrepreneur in this room, right? Um, it's fascinating because we got into this career because of what? Freedom of time. We get to control our own schedule. And then we realized that we hired ourselves as our first employee, right? Pretty exciting. Next, right? Success is predictable when goals are structured. So having it so that you have the goals, have where you're wanting to go, what that looks like, and really be able to build that is where it gets predictable, where you can have more results that you're expecting to have. And that's where the two tools that we're going to go through today in depth are GPS and 411, really to turn your vision into action and accountability. Because we want to get you there, and I want to get you there faster, right? If you want to be making X amount of money, right? What does that look like? Now, instead of just saying, hey, great, that's my target, which is very, very important. That's what we talked about, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. Yeah. But really getting that and figuring that out is huge. Because, of course, if you don't know how much what you want to make or where you want to go, or that it's the whole Alice in Wonderland of like, doesn't matter what road you choose, right? Having that, though, is the first part in order to get there. Because then we need to be able to take this all into bite-sized pieces and actionable items and then hold ourselves accountable to doing it. So this first one, well, before I jump into that, is actually, this right here is one of the 6 personal perspectives of moving from E to P. So we're entrepreneurs at heart. That's why we're in this game, right? Entrepreneurs naturally will kind of just go out and do things, which is great. The thing is, as an entrepreneur, we will always have certain ceilings of achievement that we will hit and we'll be stuck at unless we implement more models and systems to get us farther. That's the natural cause. The great thing is, there's more than one ceiling. You hit one ceiling, the whole cycle of an entrepreneur usually is you hit the ceiling, you have resignation, you get all disappointed in yourself, you throw the towel for a second, hopefully not too long, then you recommit, you hit the ceiling again, and then you start to go, oh, is there something better I can do? What's the shiny object out there that I need to go look at that will fix all my problems, right? It happens. This is my conversations with a lot of you. It's weird. Right? So that's the entrepreneurial spirit, which is great. And the thing is, we each have different levels. The purposeful is where that's how you break through that level, right? You're still going to be using your strengths as an entrepreneur, but having and adding in the systems and models are what break you through to whatever that next level is. And naturally, you're going to go through the same process, and you're going to need another system and model to get you there, right? That's that concept, and that's the whole process of getting you to where you want. So this is not a once and done, like, man, I'm now purposeful, I'm never going to have an issue, right? At the same time, having the realization of where you're at in that process is what's going to help you get to the next stage of your business, next stage of your life, next stage of your relationships, whatever that is. Make sense? Okay, so with that in mind, it really is, what is your plan? So I was having fun with, of course, ChatGPT, and I was asking it, like, what would be some examples of not having a plan? And I liked this one. It was of a contractor going to a piece of land and not having anything drafted up and saying, great, I'm building a house, and here's my wood, right?
I think we've seen houses.
We probably have seen houses like that. Especially when it's an older house that you have all of a sudden they built onto it 17 times. We've walked in those. Those are exciting. So I had it make me a comic. So there's the comic, and he's very confused because there's a pile of wood and he doesn't know what to do. So what we're doing is, this first one is GPS, right? Out of these tools, you now have your goal, you have your target, you have where you want to go. The first tool that you need to implement is say, I need a business plan. GPS is your business plan. This is your tool. It's your ever-living document. You're going to tweak it. You don't make it once in the year and then tuck it away and say, ha, plan accomplished, right? It's something you need to reference. You're going to be tweaking it. You're going to be learning more. You're going to continue to evolve that, and that's going to reflect in what you're doing in your 411, which is that next step of what we're doing. So a GPS is pretty simple. The first one is, what is your goal? What is your one goal? And you could do this for every area of your life. You could do this for each of your businesses. At one point in time, between businesses and life goals and everything I did like, I think it was 12 GPSs that I really dove into to then say, great, for me to be hitting this marathon goal, this, and that for my health one, right? For this business over here, what do I need to do? Right? But the first step is, okay, what is that main goal in that business plan that you need? So if your business plan is saying, I want to make $1 million, then you can say, I want to make $1 million. Pretty simple of saying that first step, right? And it should be something, of course, that's in a time frame. We know what it looks like in that kind of concept. You can have it be where it's a transaction-based goal. You can say, I want to do X amount of transactions, right? There's different ways to look at this and dissect it depending on your own personality and how you want. The next step is your priorities. I would say most often I see people do about 3 priorities. However, if, for example, your first priority can get you your whole business and you can put all your effort into that, like you have a huge sphere of influence, right? And your first priority is your sphere and you're going to dive into what strategies that's going to look like, and that was it, and hey, I can hit my goal just because of that one, great. I'm not going to say you need 3 priorities or 4 priorities, right? The whole concept of the priorities are, what are those things that I need to do in order to get there? I would not go to too many. I would not go, I want to do SOI and door knocking and open houses and cold calls, and then I'm also going to do separately expireds. And I wouldn't go out and say I'm going to do everything that that it's an option, right? You never do as good on things if you don't focus on it in that way. So that's that part of priorities. The next part is your strategies. And this is how you execute it in the plan. You can get as detailed as you want. My favorite to talk about is SOI, because I just with my real estate team up north, we were diving into the numbers and looking at where things are at and how our SOI was performing versus our leads versus this versus that. Our SOI for this last year was performing at for agents, and it was fun to look at each agent individually, between about 2% of their database to up to one of them was hitting 14% for his database. So that was how many were closing for what that SOI database is. If you go off the MRA numbers, you should be striving for about 18. That's the 2 to 12 ratio we talk about. So it's fun because you can dive into the SOI as your priority number one, and you can say, all right, I need my 36 touch. My 36 touch is going to look like this. I'm going to then do this with every single person. I'm also going to then put on top of the 36 touch that I know is this, 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 and this, right? I'm also going to have it where I dominate my SOI side for social media. And I'm going to do this, this, and this for them, right? You can have it where, what does that look like? And that right there is your whole business plan, right? You know what you need to do now every single week. You know what you have to do on a monthly basis, right? That's what helps you get there. If it's going to be open houses, right? And here's the sheet. So this is one that you can make a copy. If you don't have that access, that's just a Google sheet you can make a copy off of. But it's okay. What's my priority? What are my strategies? Right? If open houses was one of those levers that you want to do, it's your priority that you're going to have because maybe you don't have as many SOI and need to meet more people, right? Then, okay, I'm doing 4 open houses a week. I'm having it be in this area. I'm going to have it be where I go and I do this social media plan around it. I also do X, Y, like this is where you really get to strip this down and say, what are my strategies to make that a reality? This right here is what then gets you in that spot where you can say, hey, great. Now with this plan, right? And even I was going over this with my coach this week of the ones for the different spots that I'm working on. And he was going through and having me also then reach and change my priorities to have who is also in charge of it if it's a business that has people who should be in charge of it, right? Like if you have an assistant and they're in charge of your social media, you should put down they're in charge of your social media so you can then know what's going on, right? And he was having me then also make sure that I had where for each of these, why it helped me get towards my goal so I can be able to have that value and trackability so he can hold me more accountable to it, right? Questions on that? So what I did for you guys, hopefully you guys made a copy. If not, of course it's there, right? There's the copy. Ooh. All right, cool. The reality is, okay, clarity is power. The more you understand what you're going to do, the more you can get there. So what I also did was I built you guys, and I have a prompt for you. So this prompt is, whatever you want to use, right? ChatGPT, Claude, any of those. It's going to ask you a few things. And I have 2 of them in there for you on this one. One of them is going to be, and it's going to ask and want your GPS. And then it's going to go through a whole bunch of questions to get to know you better, to then have a whole coaching conversation around it and help you make tweaks. The whole idea is, okay, great. This is to help you dive in deeper, to have those ideas and dive into what should this look like after you have your rough draft, right? And I have it very focused because I want it to be around your strengths. If you're really good at doing something, you should ideally have that be a big part of your plan. Weird, I know. So that right there is what it goes through. And the second one I built, if you've gone through and done the KPA and have that emailed to you of what your personality assessment looks like, I have it built so you can throw your GPS and the personality assessment, and then it will go through coaching questions around that to even say, hey, based on your personality, how and more and what. I have it also basing a lot of what it does off of the 7 levels of communication, right? Of having it be like, how are you getting more of the higher level of communication with your clients and those kind of things. Ideally, when I'm coaching you guys around this more, I want to be seeing a really strong SOI plan because I'm a very strong believer, based especially on the numbers of where I've seen, right? That's a much higher rate of return than anything else than you're going to do. So that's always the one that I'm going to dissect the most with you because I'm a strong believer that if you're doing that right, then there should be no issues. So here's kind of the next part. We did that. You had this whole conversation you went through with ChatGPT or Claude and figured it out, and you have now your whole plan. Of course, like I said, this is a living document. It should be something that you're evolving over the whole year and then making sure you're diving in deep for the next set of goal, right? It's not something that should be put away and never looked at, even though I will say if you do that, it's still better than not doing it. Right? Like that's the same thing and just reality of where it's at. If you took the time and did it and spent that time, even if it was just once a year, you are going to be way better off than if you never touched this, never did it, and never thought about it, right? Because those are those actionable items that get you moving in that direction. So the 411 is this next piece. You now know your goal. You know where you're wanting to head. You have where you now, the next part is you have a business plan. You have what are your items that you need to do to be able to make that a reality, right? The next piece is, okay, doing those things. And that's where the 411 comes in. When I've lived off my 411 and done it religiously with myself, right, where I every single week pulled it out, had my 30-minute meeting with myself, planned, reviewed first of all the last week, and then looked at what the next week was and what items I needed to have on there that are my big rocks that I'm going to go through and now have the fun time of checking off, right? Because you all know, you love that. When you have a check mark and you get some of you are lying to yourselves. Like, that's a fun thing. And it happened. Weird, right? So having it where, right? But having this so you can really get it there and make it happen. Because the thing is, if we now just again are going through and living by that, those are the times that I've done that the highest level are when I have my best results. Because what am I doing? I'm looking at what I said I should do. I'm writing it down so that I can kind of go from that next step. And then I'm following up to say, hey, did I do it? Right? Who in here believes like that someone else can hold you accountable? Yeah, ish. It helps. Like, there's a reason why a coach and things like that are so vital, right? Because, but the reality is also no one can hold you accountable but yourself. But do we like to tell other people that we did what we said we're going to do? So it does help. So that's where this piece comes in. So this right here, the 401, keeps agents intentional each week. The next thing it does is it makes tracking progress easier, right? It also encourages accountability conversations because then if you're around people who know your goals and you're having that, you can now bring it up. Just like the poem that I read earlier, right? We're all in this together. Now I want to sing that song, but we're not going to go to that. Right? It's going to make it so that you now know where you're at and can say that, right? It also creates a culture of growth in coaching by being where we know where we're at, what we're doing next, and continue to move from there. So here's the example. No, I don't have the example. I messed up on that. So here's what this is. So the 411, right? It's your 1-year goal. And then it's your 4 weekly commitments. And I'll pull it up really quick on my computer since I have the wrong screenshot. And then it's your GPS and plan, which is your GPS plan goes into this to make your 401 so you can hold yourself accountable. This right here is the growth one, by the way. I love this one. If you have this, I'll have to send this to you too. The growth plan, this right here is your tool to say, hey, if you have a gap that you need to improve on, how are you actually planning and finding the right mentors, books, classes, everything like that, family reunion, to help yourself make that progress in your growth. because that's going to get you your biggest ROI is you improving yourself, right? And I'm going to go quickly to my screen. We'll type in, let's see, 411, not mine. I don't want to show you guys mine. I know, right? We're going to go to my sign in. I'm already signed in, so get me there. Not this one, 411. I'll make sure to send out this link. I have a whole bunch of people who shared it with me. There it is, 411 template. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like. Ultimately, it's, and I like to do it personally, in multiple areas of your business, and also I do it with my life. So I have, okay, what's my annual goal, right? And I do this with, because of the 7 areas of life, the retreats that we do, I have it where I have all 7 of my goals listed there in each area of life. And then I have it where, okay, now I'm doing my monthly. So monthly, in order to hit that, how am I having to dissect this and what's the rock? I'm not always doing every single spot, right? But there's sometimes, just because life is not a balancing act, it's very much a counterbalancing act, right? So sometimes you have to focus on something more. So that's just the reality of it. So I have it where, okay, for this month, I really need to do X, Y, and Z, and this, and this, and that, right? And then it goes into your weekly. And I'll make sure I have the link out there for you guys to make a copy of that and be able to implement it, because that part is really important in that way. So the next part, right, this is where, okay, you have this success is very much you build the GPS, you go through that, you have the 411, and that gives you your execution of being able to follow through and go through that process. And this is where consistency plus clarity gets you results, right? The reality is, if we're entrepreneurial and we're just doing things at the whim, we're going to have more of what you see as a roller coaster in your business, right? We've all been through it. It's how a lot of the times as an entrepreneur we have to live when we're a commission, right? The more and more you have it where you can have your direction and your execution and bring in that consistency with your clarity is where you're going to get better results over time, and it's going to make it so that you have more of what you're wanting to build, right? So here's kind of where that comes in. Now the fun part, and my coach always pulls this up with me, and he says, now does your calendar look correct to what you said you were going to do, right? So you now have, most of you are probably working out of a Google Calendar or something like that. Going through and actually having that time to like look at it and how did I do when you're having that reflection on your 411 is a huge thing to kind of go through. So another thing I built you guys is another prompt. This prompt is going to judge you. It's great. We all want to be judged. But this is all about reviewing what your week looks like based on your 411 and GPS. So if you go through and follow its prompts, the prompt is going to give it where it's asking for your GPS, your 411, and a screenshot of what your week looks like. And then it's going to put everything into categories and percentages and then go through a good questions with you. I have it so that what it does is in the MREA, there's the consultative conversation. So if any of you ever have an employee or someone that you're supposed to be meeting with, that is the conversation that Gary Keller says you have every single week with them. This is because you're your main first employee. You now get to have that conversation with yourself, and ChatGPT is programmed to go through those questions with you. So that's basically what I have for today. I knew it was going to be a little shorter. So any questions on this? Like any questions on these 2 tools, how to implement it? And yeah, let's get your guys' business to the right spot. What questions do you guys have? Yeah.
And you basically want us to fire ourselves because we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
I don't want you to fire yourself because that would be interesting. No, yeah. So,
Good though.
yeah, good. What else? Like, now next time the bold coach comes, you guys have to say you know what the 411 is and the GPS is. This is the whole reason I did this. No other reason. It's not going to improve your business at all. No. Yeah.
You guys and the 401 might together. Or I guess, yeah.
Okay, good.
That makes sense, unless it's like two separate.
It's two. So it's two separate documents, but they're a piece of the puzzle, right? So let me go back to this bridge that I did that ChatGPT made me. Aha. So ultimately, what this these are your tools to get you where you want. Even if you only did one of them, it would help you significantly. But the reality is, when the GPS is your main tool to say, what am I actually going to do and what are those action items? If you then have that up on your second monitor, since people just bought their second monitor, which is great, and then you have on the other one, your 411, right? This is where you can now look at the GPS and what you said, what you need to be doing throughout the year in order to hit those results, right? Hit your goal. Then you go over to your 411 and say, okay, where do I need to match that in my month for this month and for each week? Because if you plan out now what I need to do each week, if you said, hey, over here, and I'm going to social media because that's in my mind, because Gary Keller said we all need to be better at it, right? If I said I'm going to do X, Y, and Z with social media, I'm going to do one YouTube video every single week, kind of a concept. I'm going to make sure now, okay, is that over on my 411? I'm doing one YouTube video every single week. It gives me my checkbox. It gives me now the next part of going to my calendar and blocking out that time. If I have to make a video in my 411 because I put it on my week, then I should be able to say, okay, my calendar now shows 1 hour for me to go make my 13, 15-minute video, have the conversation before that with ChatGPT, go through and then put it in, and then pay Fiverr for editing, probably, right? Or whatever. But have it so that, okay, like I got that done. That's an example, right? Another thing, okay, if my GPS said, every single month I'm taking 10 of my friends out to lunch. That was on your GPS because your SOI group, you have, you want to make sure that you're going and loving on your people and having that face-to-face mini event of even one or two or whatever people of a few friends. Of course, you got to cycle through them. If it's only the same one friend, then you're just really making them happy, which is great, right? If that was on my goal, though, I'm doing 10 a month. Okay, on my 411 in the month section, 10. And I've even gone through and made 10 little check boxes, right? And then I'll go to my weeks and I'll say, all right, since I usually do 1 week at a time, because of course, if I failed 1 week, then the next week it's harder, right? And I'm going to say, all right, if I have to do 10 of these, I'm going to do 4 this first week. And I need to schedule that, or actually I probably need to schedule my 4 for next week in reality with how my schedule is working nowadays, right? I would then schedule those, call up my friends this week to schedule them for next week so I'm on pace, right? Now I go to my calendar and I say, all right, I'm doing my SOI phone calls, Tuesday at 9 to 11 because I only have to call my 20 people because it's blah, 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 right? And I'm now out of those 20 people going to find my 4 people that I had a great conversation with that I want to have another, just really sit down with them and have even more time. Make sense? Does that help? Yeah. So these tools of what these are very much around helping you to orchestrate your plan and follow through with it. Because who in here has ever had a good idea and hasn't done it? There's a few of you. I'm now worried either A, you never had a good idea. Just kidding. All right. So that's what this is for, though, right? It's to help you build that out to get you to where you want to go in a much more predictable fashion, right? Because if you're wanting to have X, Y, and Z, and that's your goal, then how do we get there? Let's plan it and work backwards, right? If you now say, hey, my someday goal, my 5-year, 10-year goal is to be an X, Y, and Z, right? Have 50K of passive income monthly. Okay, I now need to say, what's my year need to look like to make that small domino to make that happen, right? And this is all just examples to say, how do we get there? And that's where the growth plan, which you saw an image of, which is great. The growth plan's huge to say, what am I doing to put energy back into myself with knowledge, information to get you to that next level, right? That's one of the reasons why I love Family Reunion, right? That's one of the reasons why I like some good books, like going through and saying, hey, having it so if you're doing and already having it where you're reading one book a month, you could easily on the growth one have it so every single month you already pick your books out or pick it out for the next couple months, right? That's the concept. Other questions, because that was a great one. All right, okay. Well, awesome. There's food out there. We'll make sure to get you guys the link of the 411 and the GPS on there. And I would challenge you guys over the next bit to use it, implement it, and see how you can continue to improve your business. What one?